our top story there. Mwangaza surviving that impeachment bid as senators dismiss MCA's allegations. Well, that's the embattled Meru governor who, about 1 a.m. actually today, survived that motion that sought to end her and send her packing. Well, the county boss immediately broke down in tears when senators took the final vote to dismiss all the 7 charges leveled against her. And this is what the Speaker of the Senate, Amason Kingi, said, and I quote, "The Senate has not upheld any of the charges. The Senate has failed to remove the governor by way of impeachment. Accordingly, she remains the county governor of Meru." And by midnight, the senators, about 47 delegations, started voting on those 7 charges leveled against the governor. The senators voted on each charge separately, and it took about, starting with the, so it started with the issue of misappropriation and misuse of county resources, and then there was the issue of nepotism. You had the issue of unrelated and ethical practices, bullying, vilification and demeaning other leaders, illegal appointments and usurpation of statutory powers, contempt of court, illegally naming a public road after her husband, and contempt of the assembly. So those were the 7 charges that Kawira Mwangaza was facing. Now, in particular, she sought the forgiveness of Meru Senator Murungi Kadhuri and MCAs and committed to promote unity among leaders. But all these charges were now, not taken into consideration, and they were dismissed by the Senate when they did vote. And that means that Kawira Mwangaza will continue serving as the governor of Meru County. And interesting, because actually in the studio, I'm being joined by Mheshimiwa Isaac Ruto. A very good morning to you, former governor. Yes. Now a member of the Judicial Service Commission. Yes. And also former chair of the Council of Governors. Yes. Karibu sana, it's been long since we've seen you on our airwaves. And I hope you've been keeping well. Well, very well. Indeed. As you can see. Now, as a former governor, it would be very interesting to hear, your thoughts on what happened here. This is an independent candidate who took over power, very interestingly, and first female governor in Meru. Yes. Facing her 2nd impeachment motion. Yes. Still serving, in less than 2 years. I don't know what your thoughts are. Yes, I think that really comes to show how difficult it is in the counties to function with MCAs who have specific objectives other than that which the governor has. The good lady from Meru, it's new in politics, but has good intentions. Unfortunately, she's working in a field she's very unfamiliar with. I'm sure she did not bargain for the type of witch hunting that can happen on the political front. But thank God, at least the senators are looking at it a bit more objectively this time. Because we've seen even the voting patterns were completely not party affiliated like what we've seen before, right? Yes. It was a very sort of neutral vote across the party lines. Yes. Yeah, so that would speak quite about something. Even me looking at the charges, I didn't see anything that could be sustained. Most of it is petty. And I know how MCAs behave sometimes, especially when they start looking around for other objectives, other than that which is the common good for the people. We saw that even in Kivuda Kibwana's place. Correct. Yeah, they really gave him hell. Yet Kivuda Kibwana wanted to deliver the right thing for the people. But the MCAs had a different idea and a different agenda. I can only say that I think it is an indication that the national executive is not interfering with the counties. Everybody now is voting freely, including now, especially at the Senate, that they just discuss plainly as themselves. I remember in October we had the Council of Governors who were meeting and re-electing their leaders, saying that we sort of need to, change the threshold of how you can impeach the governor, sort of make it, a bit more stringent, like how you would impeach an MCA, a member of parliament, that the threshold for impeaching a governor is quite low.
It is very low. We also need to get away of public participation. What do the people of Meru also say? Yeah, and I think all these things should be synchronized so that it is the same threshold as that of the members of parliament. The MPs protected themselves, the MCAs protected themselves. The same constitution had put in place a situation in which MPs could be recalled, MCAs could be recalled, but the threshold put, you can never touch an MP. But the governors are fair game for everyone. Yeah.
So which means any political machinations can take place, and that would be at the disadvantage of a governor who then ends up being on the other side of the table.
Most governors got a lot of sabotage from previously through political machinations.
Right.
And especially the Senate used to harass counties because they want to be governors in the next election. So they would come up with trumped charges. They would even create propaganda and try investigating that propaganda. And they are the ones who created it.
That's and it's not the first time we've seen that. We've also seen some of the other governors right now also sort of in that particular mix. We've seen the Kiambu governor as well, who's facing a number of issues with the MCAs, but I think that has sort of been settled right now. Which other governor? I think there's a bit of an issue, if I can remember, but I'll get that. There's another governor who's also facing, an impeachment sort of, motion against the MCAs. But this is where we are. Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza will continue serving as the governor of that county. Meanwhile, let's see what else we have on the DN very quickly here. Away from that story is, all right, senators call for Kurias impeachment as well. President William Ruto's administration appears to be at a crossroads as top-ranking officials find themselves embroiled in public spats and social media exchanges, the infighting exposing the power intrigues and battles within the ruling government. In the latest incidents, Public Service Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria and his Transport and Roads counterpart Kipchumba Murkomen have found themselves in the crosshairs of legislators. Well, you do have senators allied to Kenya Kwanza yesterday demanding for the sacking of Kuria, describing him as rogue and an embarrassment to the government and the country. This was led actually by Senate Majority Leader Aaron Cheruiyot, who's a close ally of the president, and the lawmakers are asking the head of state to crack the whip on his rogue ministers. And this comes after Kuria cast aspersions on the intentions of some of the senators in the impeachment trial of the Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza through a post on his Twitter, that is the X post on Tuesday evening. The CS listing 13 senators, 11 from Kenya Kwanza, whom he said were being misled. He went on to name all of them, including Aaron Cheruiyot. And then in a swift rejoinder, you had Cheruiyot saying the CS is an embarrassment to the appointing authority, and that the Kericho senator said the post was in bad taste as it pointed senators as cheap people who have no cognitive abilities to make interpretations of matters before them and make sober decisions in the interest of the constitution of the people. I mean, Mheshimiwa, when you're looking at whatever, the things that have been happening right now, the public spats, and most of these people who were really high-ranking officials within the ruling coalition, you see an issue there?
No, it's normal amongst politicians for them to rankle. It's not
so
new.
This is normal political wrangling,
That is normal. That's normal. Some of them are jostling for space. Others would like to create more space for themselves. So it's a normal thing, as long as it does not interfere with the normal functioning of the ministries. And in my own view, ministers should be allowed to deliver on their mandate as best as they can, and they should only be judged on that basis. But the other issues about political alignments or that you can hardly control it, because that is politics. That is what it is all about. Right. They do that all the time.
Part of this political space.
Yes. Each one creates his own space, and he must jostle and push.
I mean, it's not the first time we've seen this happening in different administrations as well.
Yes, they normally happen. That should not be a distraction. And when they don't do that, it means they feel they are not doing anything.
Right.
So that's fine.
All right. And also joining us in studio is Jeremiah Kioni, Jubilee Secretary General. Very good morning. Good to see you.
Morning.
Karibu sana.
Asante
as we
sana.
look forward to today later in the afternoon. We're giving you a brief of what is going to be happening. But before I move on, I just perhaps to get your quick thoughts on this. We moved on from that, but yes, it's a big one. Kawira Mwangaza surviving her second impeachment before the Senate, and now she'll continue serving. What are your thoughts on what happened?
That's a very serious problem within Meru. Because I think quite a number of the leaders in Meru are behind the impeachment. They seem to survive to lose again to this lady. And I did engage some of them before this impeachment, and there is a fear that then there was a fear that if she survived, they may not be able to remove her during the electioneering program. For the reason that I think he has some very populist approach to issues on the ground. But that now seems to have been their views because they have lost. So it's a very serious issue for those who are eyeing for leadership in Meru. They have to
Was it because of her leadership style and some of her ideas, or is it just political, sort of what she termed as political witch hunt for jostling for that position she holds right now?
Well, like my colleague says, political witch hunt, you can always call it whatever you want to call it. Those are political battles that are going to be there. But the reality is that you could hear of some very serious allegations. But you can actually see maybe they didn't have the backing of anything tangible.
Right.
But there is also what they don't say publicly, that there is a fear that they may not be able to remove her when the opportunity is presented through a general election or otherwise. But it's an interesting time, or these are interesting times to see people surviving impeachment. During Isaac's time, I don't think anybody survived. If they did...
No, I mean, we had Governor Wambora. They called him the governor with 9 lives.
9 lives eventually remained there, but he...
They survived during my time. It is this other term where they was thrown out.
The second term.
The second term.
Yes, when they were
first
thrown
term,
out. Yes.
They all survived.
But the only reason why they survived is that those who sought to become governors for the first wave were serious individuals who really had something to do in terms of devolution. And they went there to, impact on the lives of Kenyans. Thereafter, it's not the case. You can't say that is the case. Every successive election we are getting, and this is my opinion, we are getting worse. We are getting worse every other time. I don't want to give my personal position, whatever, but I'm here to talk about my personal views on it. Surviving, but not useful for Meru.
All right, not useful for Meru. And also very quick thoughts on what it also transpired yesterday. You had the Cabinet Secretary, Public Service there, Moses Kuria, who's now sort of a loggerheads with some of the Kenya Kwanza Alliance members of Parliament. We've seen some of them in the Senate calling out the Cabinet Secretary as well.
Nothing new. What did you expect from Kuria?
So what, you also see it as sort of political wrangling, as normal?
Yes. Nothing new.
Right.
That is what he is best known for. And he will serve what he can serve, what he cooks. So let them expect more.
So nothing out of the ordinary.
Nothing.
That is Kuria in his element.
That's Kuria in his element.
All right, I see.